Good morning to you and welcome to my orchid room. I have been up way too early today because I went to bed way too early yesterday. But that is okay. I've accomplished a lot and it's not even 8 a.m. in the morning. But I started to unpot one of my orchids. I have it strewn across my table and I thought I would stop what I was doing so I can show you how my plant's coming along and why I'm fiddling with it at 8 in the morning. So let's jump over to the table. This is the remnants of what I was working on. My Ascofinitia Peaches. She is growing wonderfully and I got a spike out of her this summer. She smelled glorious right there. But every time I water her, I notice that the moss is getting a little skanky. Now she is up on the top shelf and you can see the little bit of algae growing on the inside, and that bothers me to no end. I have her up on my top shelf underneath the Mars light. She loves it, but recently I upped the volume on the Mars light. It was operating at 75%. Now we're up to like 85%, and I'm noticing some of her leaves are yellowing and she's getting the little dots that tell you she's getting enough of the light that she needs to photosynthesize. And so I thought I would change her media, freshen it up or rinse it off, and go from there and put her back on the shelf. So let's sit down together and do that. So as you can see, I've got one of my vandas soaking over here. Finally, her wrinkles are going away. Maybe next year I'll see flowers. But back to the Ascofinitia Peaches. Now she has all of these roots. Checking them with you for the first time. I haven't, there's a couple, where the algae is sitting on some of these. Let me get that little light closer. See if you can tell that. Let me turn this light on. If that helped any. But where there is algae, she is growing softer in the root there. So that's why I like to change when I see the algae, get in there with a soft toothbrush and go to a little bit of hydrogen peroxide and scrub the roots. Those are the ones that kind of were out of the pot because she is like a vanda. You can grow her just bare rooted like that on a mount or on a hanging stick. But I have always put her in a pot because I grow indoors and I grow on my shelves and I want it to be flat on the surface if I can, and I want her to be as high up to the Mars light as possible, and hanging doesn't allow that. Sitting on the shelf gets it closest. So I have always just lightly potted her up. This is my third year with her, I think. She didn't do anything the first year. The second year she grew a lot of roots and a couple more fans, and then this summer she finally spiked and bloomed for me. I have changed her pot. I've up potted her. This will be the third time. I've always used a lot of the inorganic media, even rocks and stones and pebbles, just to absorb space. I wanted her to stay rooted in the pot and have the weight enough to hold her down, but I wanted water to stay around her for a little bit. And then I always put moss around the top layer. As those new roots came out, they can jump into the moss. But as I took the moss down and smelled it today, it didn't smell so good. So I have some new moss that I picked off of the branches outside of my Pacific Northwest backyard from the leaf branches that fall all through the year. And I keep it in one of my grocery store cookie containers, the plastic stuff. When I harvest it off the branches, I rinse it. I put it in the salad spinner. Spin it around, get all the dirt and pieces out of it, and then I inspect it for anything that might be moving or crawling. Or then when she's pretty cleaned up, then I douse her with hydrogen peroxide. I was going to show you, but I don't know where it's at. Hydrogen peroxide, just in case there's any snail eggs, slug eggs, anything hiding that I didn't see. And then that, after it does its fizzing and evaporates, turns just back into water, so no need to rinse it. And then I layer in here with just a touch of water and that dome over the top, and I use that as a top dressing. So I'm going to pick out all the remnants of anything organic and toss everything out that isn't a rock, a stone, or leca, and I will boil those up at another time and cleanse them and wash them. You don't want to reuse your leca or your rocks or your stones until you've washed them. It will begin to store the nutrients that you are feeding your plants, so these will contain a high TDS number of solids when you boil them. So you'll want to boil, rinse, boil, rinse, boil, rinse at least 4 times is what I have found. And so that will be done at a different time, and I will use some that I already have washed and rinsed. I am just gonna give this good girl a sweet bath in hydrogen peroxide. And then I'm going to gently clean those roots with the toothbrush to try to remove the algae and any leftover moss that might be sitting on there. And yeah, I thank you for joining me today, and for those of you that are new to my channel, I thank you for visiting. You might ask, why in the heck do you take the time to do this? And my husband's been asking for 30 some odd years why the heck I do what I do, but I just don't like the look of algae. It reminds me of being a kid and swimming in the lake and having to step on the rocks to get out, and I would avoid it all day long because they were slimy with algae. Yeah. It's got some nice growing root tips down here. Ooh, that's pretty. Yeah, a couple like the bottom one way down here must have been tucked into some old moss. And if it doesn't come off, that's okay. And I'm not peeling off any of the stuff that's sitting on her roots. She's attached to it. She likes it. If she doesn't like it, it will drop off when she's ready. But here is my concept. I got out the original pot, and I could squish her back in. But I don't want to have to do this every year if I can avoid just keeping the moss down. And there's a deeper pot. But then I thought, oh, there's a cracked one there. I need to trim that. Then I thought I would get, let me grab my scissors, a little creative. What do you think if we put her in here and put her on the shelf? Now this has holes, and I don't really want the roots going down because then they'll go through the shelf and down to the next shelf, and getting her off and on the shelf every time I need to water her would be a real pain in the backside. So I found an old serving container dish for some takeout dish, and I'm going to cut it and put it right down there, and then when her roots want to grow, they can grow out all they want, but they won't go down because there won't be any holes for her to go down into. I think that's a smart idea. I think I cut that just about right, so she is in there. Now I'm going to have to fill up with leca and some fresh clean beads and rocks to keep her weighted into the pot. I like that she can get a good drink and stay wet for maybe a day or two, because with my migraines, I'm not always in the orchid room every single day to water. And if I want to go on vacation, I'll soak her real good before I go. And those wood chips that I add to the mix and some of the leca down there will retain water for a while. And so it's a perfect combination for me in my orchid room in the Pacific Northwest. There is a lot of humidity in the air, so it's just, I found the perfect combination. Recently I was searching for some orchiata bark because that's usually what I choose on Amazon, and I came across another vendor. It was on Amazon selling another large bark, and I was actually looking for larger pieces of bark, so I thought I'd compare the two. So I have a new vendor. I'm not sponsored by him, but I found that I really love this bark. Now I think between the two that came, I have an Orchiata bark mix, which is obviously bigger in quantity, and then I have this one. So I probably got more for my money with the Orchiata bark. But this order, when I ordered it, it said Sprig and Stone Orchiata Orchid Substrate. So it says that it is an Orchiata bark from New Zealand Pinus radiata bark. It's a stable and pH adjusted medium with dolomite addition. So it's added dolomite into that, which supplies the essential nutrient calcium. I did not know that. So I learned something new. Orchiata will not break down over time and become acidic as quickly as other barks that you might find. So I thought I'd pay the higher dollar amount to get larger pieces, because when you are using larger pieces with something like this, they're not soaking and sitting in water for a long time. So I might get 3 years out of what I put in here, depending on how I treat it. Let me show you the sizes. I have they're about yay big. Now the Orchiata bark, I've had issues with Amazon with it coming, and there's tons of tiny holes in the bag, but the vendor selling it has kept it wrapped in plastic, so then it sweats and then it molds. But they look similar, but these pieces are definitely thicker and hardier, and they have a smell like they have been treated with something. So that dolomite, I'm eager to see how it works. But this I got it on Amazon, but it came from a store called Josh's Frogs, because you can get, if you go to reptile stores, you can find your Orchiata barks and also your barks that you hang your mounts on, and ferns and stuff like that. So check out, if you can't find what you're looking for, check it out at a reptile store and see if it's cheaper. These are what I am going to add to this plant. So I'm going to add some of the Josh's bark. And some of the Orchiata bark, you know, don't want to be too partial to one or the other. And I also have here a bunch of leca. Now I know the smaller pieces are going to just fall right through the holes, and then I'll collect them back up again, and I'm okay with that. Not too heavy. It's okay when her little roots come through. I will just have to be very delicately careful when I pick her up so I don't smush any of the new roots that will begin to poke through. That's my Ascofinitia Peaches. Hopefully I'll see flowers again in the summer. Until we talk again, bye-bye.